Right now I'm going to set up a file to share. We're going to go through the different permissions and restrictions that we're able to place on it. What you would do, you would go to the Windows Explorer, open that up, and here we have the file that I've previously created. We want to right click this file and open up the second menu. We go down to Sharing, select Sharing, and this opens up the file share properties. There are a number of different resources that are shared through the file share properties, which would include file systems, printers, and databases. Right now we're currently going to work with the file systems. Usually it's a system administrator that sets the rights and permissions for the different resources. Okay, now what we're going to do, we're going to click the Share This Folder, and automatically by default it creates a share file name, which this one is File to Share. It allows us to put a comment which could briefly describe what it is in that file that's going to be viewable on the network. Next, we're allowed to set the user limit, which basically sets the total amount of users that are allowed to access it. We can have different amounts here, or we can just set the default, which is the maximum allowed. Now we're going to get to the permissions. You have to remember that shares are created at the folder level. That's the FAT32, or the NTFS level. Okay, I'm going to click the permissions button, and we're going to open up another screen. So here we see that there's 3 different permissions. We can have read, change, or full control. Once a file is shared, only the users with permissions are allowed to use it. Once again, remember that sharing a file means that you're making it available to users on the network. Okay, the read permission allows the user to display files and subfolders, execute programs contained in the directories. The change permission allows readers the same as the read permission, but also adds files, append or delete existing files or folders. Full control permission allows the same permissions as change and also includes change permissions and files and system resources. And up here where it says everyone, this just shows the group that we're setting the permissions for. In this, the add remove buttons, we're able to add, which we will check it off here. This gives us a listing of all the groups and the users. We're able to add them and delete them as we need. I'm just going to add guests. OK. So now guests should be added into the share permissions. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to delete everyone by removing them. You have to remember that least restrictive will be the final effective permission when multiple sharing permissions are assigned. An example of this is if someone that has a user account only has read restrictions, and if that person is also a member of a group and they have a change permission, then the end result will be that they will have only a read permission allowed to their access to the folder. Okay, so I'm just going to apply the settings here and go back to the previous screen. So we've covered permissions. Now we're going to cover caching. Caching is essentially to make the folder or file available offline. So I'm going to click the button here, and we're going to be presented with a few choices here. We're going to go through them one by one. The default is to allow manual caching of documents. This means that the user must specify which file or documents that they want accessible. The second one is automatic caching of documents. This makes the files automatically cached and available offline. There is one note that the files are only the ones that are selected will be made available offline. You must open the files in order for this sharing permission to apply. Okay, we're going to check to the third one, which is automatic caching of programs. This is for files or folders that have read access only. They're ideal for read and referenced or run items. This is good to reduce network traffic. So what we're going to do, we're going to set it back to the original one, which was manual caching of documents, which is also the default. Just going to click OK, and then we would set apply and OK, and now we see a little hand that appears beside the folder meaning that it currently now is shared. Second way of creating a shared folder is using the shares in the computer management snap-in. What you do, you go to the start button, you press go to the run. Here you type in MMC, press enter, and this opens up the console 1. From console 1 screen you can go onto the console button at the top left corner, press it, and click add remove snap-in. From here you can choose which folder you're adding it in. We're going to add it into the console root. We add by pressing the add button. Now you highlight the computer management snap-in, press add once again. This brings us to another screen, which is the computer management screen. Here you choose from a local computer or another computer. Currently we're just going to use the local computer. If you're using a network computer, you got to make sure that you have the proper permissions set up on that computer to access it. So now we can go ahead and press finish. And now as we can see, we've added the computer management into the add remove snap-ins. We can close the add standalone snap-in screen, and we can also close this one here. So now we can see that on the root console, we've added computer management local. Just going to make it all a little bit bigger so we can see it better. We click the plus sign to open up this. Just going to open it a little bit more. Here we have to press the plus sign again to open up the system tools. Inside the system tools we're going to find our shared folders. We can select this folder, and we'll see on the right hand side that it displays the shares, the sessions, and the open files. You can click on the shares. This shows what is shared on our computer currently. As we can see, the file to share that we created earlier is on here. By clicking the sessions, there aren't any sessions that are open right now, and there aren't any files that are open right now. So this gives us some control on how to view what the settings on our system are. If we want to add a share into the share folders, what we would do, we would right click and we can add a new file share. We can have a new file share once again. So by right clicking it, new file to share, we're opening up a create share folder menu. Here we can either browse the file to find a folder to share, and here we have the share name and the description. So what we're going to do, we're going to browse the folder. So I'm going to select the file that I created earlier, which is called file to share. So it's in the folder to share. And we can have a share name and we can have a description. I'm just going to type in something quickly here. Press next. Here we're given 4 choices of all users have full control, administrators have full control, other users have read-only access, administrators have full control, other users have no access, and customize share and folder permissions. It's very similar to what we just learned earlier about the share permissions. I'm just going to keep the default all users have full control and finish this up. Then it asks us if we would like to create another shared folder, which I'm not going to do so right now. And there it is. That's the folder that we've just created that we're going to be sharing. We're going to talk about assigning permissions. We're going to go to the Start button, right click it, open up the Windows Explorer. From here we'll be able to select our folder that we're going to be using. Go down. This is the folder that I created earlier. Go to the right click it, go to the properties, open up the properties. We're going to select the security tab. From here we're going to add in a user that's going to have we're going to be able to change the permissions for. There's the user I created earlier, temporary, and add him in there. Press OK, and we're going to be able to see that he's added to the folder. Okay, there he is. Okay, the defaults are read and execute, list folder contents, and read. The first one I'm going to be discussing is read, which allows the user to see the files and subfolders in a folder and view attributes, ownership, and permissions. Okay, the next one is write. This permission is going to allow the user to create new files and subfolders with the folder, change folder attributes, and view folder ownership and permission. The next permission is list folder contents. This one allows the user to see the names and files and subfolders in the folder itself. Oops, I pressed the wrong. We're going to get to the access control settings later. The next one that I want to talk about is the read and execute permission. This permission, just check it off here, allows the user to list contents and even traverse. The ability to traverse folders is to access files and folders and their subdirectories. It even allows the user to access them even if he doesn't have the permission to do so. Next permission is to modify. This permission allows the user to delete the folder, and it also gives us the user the same permissions as the read and execute and write actions. Okay, the last one is to allow the user to have full control. This permission allows the user to change permissions, take ownership, delete subfolder and files, and gives the user all other permissions and actions that are allowed. For file permissions, it's very similar to the folder permissions. Just going to open up a file here, going to check the properties, and we're going to go to the security settings tab, and we're also going to add in a user, which we added into the folder there before. Temporary user, going to add him in. Okay, and now we're going to set his permissions. The permissions are generally the same as they were with the folder, as I said earlier. The read allows the user to read a file, view file attributes, ownership, and permissions. The write allows the user to overwrite a file, change file attributes, and view file ownership and permissions. The read and execute gives the user the rights required to run applications and perform the actions permitted by the read permission. The modify gives the user the permission, the ability to modify and delete a file, perform actions permitted by the write, read, and execute permissions. The full control allows the user to change permissions, take ownership, delete subfolders and files, and perform the actions granted by all other permissions. Okay, now to deny is the same for both folders and files. When you deny, you block the user from using any other permissions that the user may have. Deny permission overrides all other permissions. Okay, now we're going to talk about the inheritance of permissions. The parent's permissions are inherited by all subfolders. See the way it's grayed out here in the allow? This means that it's inherited from the parent. Okay, when we uncheck the allow inheritance permissions from parent to propagate to this project, we're given a choice of either to copy, remove, or cancel. To copy is inherited permissions from the parent folder. When you check off remove, it removes the inherited permissions and retains only permissions that were explicitly assigned, or you could just cancel and it will go back to being checked off. We're going to go into the advanced button features of the folder sharing or file sharing properties. Here under the permissions tab, we're able to either add or remove users. We can add one simply by pressing add. It lists off the users, and we're just going to add a guest here. And after we're adding them, allowed to view which special permissions will be allowed for that user. Right now I'm just going to check off OK. What we're going to do, we're going to view the temporary user that was created earlier. The first one of the special permissions is traverse folder execute file. By checking off allow, this allows the user to move through folders and reach other files and folders. Next one only applies for folders, which is list folder read data, and this permission allows the user to view file names and folder names within the folder. Next one, read attributes, either allows or denies the user to view attributes of the file or folder. The read extended attributes, by clicking this, you allow the user to read or view the extended attributes of a folder. The next one, create files or write data, allows the creating of files within the folder. Data permission allows or denies making changes to the file, overriding existing content. The next one, create folders, append folders, allows creating folders within a folder. And the append data allows changes to the end of a folder. The next one, write attributes, allows the changing the attributes of a file or folder. The next one, write extended attribute, allows changing the extended attributes of the file or folder. Okay, the next one, delete subfolders and files, allows the user to delete subfolders and files even if delete permission is not granted for the folder. Delete allows you to delete the files or folders. The read permission allows or denies the read permissions for the folder. The next one, to change permissions, is allows you not only to read the permissions, but you're also able to change the permissions, such as full control, read, or write. Okay, the last one, take ownership, allows you to take ownership of the file or folder. The owner of the file or folder can always change permissions on it, regardless of any existing permissions that protect the file or folder. Okay, and then at the bottom, we're able to apply these permissions or objects to containers or within this container only. So I'm just going to check off OK and go back to this screen here. From this screen, we can click off owner to see the owner of the file. So we're just going to go back to the permissions by pressing the permissions tab. Encryption services. Let's go to the start menu, open up the Windows Explorer once again. I'm going to select our file that we're going to use for this demonstration. Select the folder to share file. This is the same one that I created earlier. We're going to open up to the General tab, press the Advanced key, and here we have a listing of advanced attributes. Windows uses an EFS system or encryption file system. Services based on publicly private key encryption technology. It is managed by the Windows 2000 Public Key Infrastructure Services, or PKI. When the owner of the file tries to access this the file, the EFS system uses the private key in order to open up the file. If a user who does not own the resource attempts to access the resource, they will receive an access denied message. To encrypt the file, we simply select encrypt square here, and we press OK. And apply. We're given a choice whether we want the changes to apply to this folder only or also to apply to subfolders and files. So we're just going to stick with the default apply changes to the folder only, and it completes the process of encryption. And we can close the folder now. You can also go to the command prompt to do encryption. So we're just going to go quickly to the command prompt here and open up the window. And there's a utility called the Chiffer utility, and it allows you to encrypt files and folders as well as check encryption status. So I'm just going to type it in here. And this basically, for listing of the commands for the Chiffer utility, we press Chiffer \, and this lists off the utilities commands. We're going to talk a little bit about the print process. First of all, the user sets up print job by issuing the print command through the application. It is then sent to the printer software, which defines a path to the printer, sets up the print manager and process, which then locates the print server. The print server then processes the job, formats the job so the physical device can process it. From there, it is sent to the physical printer, and from that device it prints the job. Now, setting up a printer on your Windows 2000 Professional, you can go to the Start button, click it. You can either go to Settings here, Printers. We're just going to choose this path for now. Go to the Add Printer icon, the Next button. We have a choice either to set up a local printer or a network printer. Right now what we're going to do, we're going to set up a local printer. Process is very similar also for the network printer. Normally it would find the plug-and-play printer, but I don't have a printer connected currently. So we pick an LPT port that we're going to use the printer from. Choose the printer device. If you have the disk, you could insert it, or you could choose it from the default setting, the default menu here. I'm just selecting them at random, and then it asks me the printer name and do we want the printer as the default printer. So I'm going to just check off no, and I'm just going to keep the printer as the actual printer name. Next, and here it asks me whether I want to share the printer. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share the printer as Brother H. Click next again. This information is for other users that would be connecting to the printer on a network. So I'm just going to print in some information here. Okay, type front office, the location to help guide the people, the users, to where the printer is. And I'm just going to put a brief comment here. Press next again. Do you want to print a test page? I'm just going to keep it at no. And then it's the completing wizard shows me what I've connected and how I've connected it. I can finish this, and the system will copy the files necessary for the print device. And as you can see, my printer is added, and because the hand is below it, it is shared. We can right click on it to see the actual properties of it. This gives us all the properties of the printer, including the sharing. Remember, before here is where the location and the comment. This is what other users will see over the network. Okay, now we can click off sharing, and as we can see, the printer is shared because it's a network printer as Brother H, as we set it up earlier. We can add additional drivers to the system which allow users that connect to the system, maybe if they're not using the Windows 2000 platform, they're using Windows 95 or 98. What we would do is we would add the driver here. We would press OK, and right now it's going to ask us for the disk to install, so we're going to probably cancel this, and we're just going to go ahead and take off the check mark. But this feature is good because it allows users that connect to the system to download drivers automatically from your own system. So I'm just going to check off cancel here, and we're going to go on to ports. There's the different port settings which we can adjust. We can add ports, delete ports, and we can enable, we can configure the ports here. In the advanced features, we can select different times that we're going to make the printer available for the network users. We can set different priorities, priority levels. Here we can add a new driver for a printer if we're not satisfied with the current one. The print spooling documents, or we can print directly to the printer, and we've got a few other options here that we can use. Under the security tab, it's very similar to the files and folders, where we can add and remove users that are going to be able to use the printer. And under the permissions, we have three choices. We can either print, manage printers, or manage documents. So right now we're just going to check off print, and we're going to go over what rights we have for that. So as a print permission, we're able to print documents, pause, resume, restart, and cancel the user's own print jobs, so that would be our own print jobs, and connect to the shared printer. So these are the three options that this permission allows us. The next one that we're going to look at is to manage document. And this permission allows us the same permissions that the print permission allowed us, but also allows us control of the job setting for all print jobs, pause, resume, restart, and cancel all users' print jobs, and we're also able to cancel all print jobs. So by checking off the manage documents, we're allowed to do this. And finally, the manage printers, which lets us have the same permissions as we did have with print and with the manage documents, but we're also given a few other ones, a few other capabilities, such as we're able to pause and resume a printer and take a printer offline, share a printer, change printer priorities, delete a print, change printer properties, delete a printer, and change printer permissions. By clicking the Advanced button, we're able to see the same kind of configuration as we did with the file and folder sharing. We can see the permissions that are granted, and we're also able to see the owner of the network printer. Here we can add, remove, and we can edit the different users. So I'll just check off one and we can see what permissions we're allowed to have for this. And from here we're able to change the different permissions: print, manage printers, manage document, read permissions, change permissions, and take ownership. So we're just going to get out of this menu here, and we're going to go back to one other feature about the print pooling, which is under the port settings. And if we check off here, enable print pooling, what this does is this enables our printer to be directed to multiple physical print locations. This option's good if you're using in a high volume print environment. If we want to set up print redirection, what we do is we're going to add a port. You can see here that says documents will print to the first free checked port. So we're going to add another port, create a new port. I'm going to just call it computer for now, and OK, and close it. And here we've got a new port that we've created. So in turn the computer will choose to print to. So this would be the port that the printer would be printing to, and if we connected it to another printer, then that would be the one that it would choose to print to.